think the best part about being in a place like this today is seeing the industry as it's growing. I'm sure folks have been down to AC over the last several years, but to see a city like this with a beautiful dispensary like this right next to the casinos offering this opportunity for coming down to AC, it really is tremendous. We're going to spend some time over the next couple minutes giving a little bit of a kind of state of the state update as to the cannabis market and the cannabis industry with our fine presenters here today. We did want to give the room an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves. So if you could just give your name, what company you're here with, just so everyone kind of can orient themselves in the room. We'll start over here.
Hey, I'm Steve Pemberton with Vicente. I'm a cannabis attorney, and we are a cannabis law firm.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name's Nicole. I'm with Nova Farms. I'm the community engagement manager.
Hi, I'm Kara Ford. I'm the CEO and founder of Jane Doe Bakery.
Hi, Kelly and Jimmy. We're the owner of Roots right here in Egg Harbor Township.
Bakin Dispensary. Rob Krigler, CFO, High Grass Farms, cultivator, manufacturing.
I'm Bria Days. I am one of the owners of Beat the Grind, who made the food.
Yeah. Tim Wygan, COO of Valley Wellness in Raritan.
Bill Stayback, COO of New Earth in Garfield, New Jersey.
John Coolin, Chief Operating Officer with NACA over there from High Grass Farms.
Sarah Trent, Valley Wellness, founder with Tim over there.
Sean McGar, New Earth Extracts.
Seth Tipton with Florida Perucci. I'm a cannabis attorney.
Amanda Ostrowitz with SLAP Consulting, Site Selection and Government Entitlements.
David with Amanda as well.
Montefigaro, Class 2 manufacturer, Can Empowerment, and also Butter Cake Edible Spray.
Hi, Yasmin, Butter Cake CEO.
Trina Ragsdale, CEO and founder of Jane's Joint Boutique Dispensary. These are my Wonder Twins and co-founders, Niall and Noel.
So first off, I love this room. You really see kind of like the full breadth of the marketplace from medical retailers, adult use cultivators, manufacturers, brands, and the like, right? And even consultants as well. You really kind of see how this marketplace is growing in real time. Obviously, the New Jersey cannabis marketplace has been going for some time. At the same time, I think it's really important to remember kind of where we are in the life cycle, that we're still relatively new into certainly the adult use experiment in New Jersey. I always like to say, like, we're a little bit in the second inning, right? We've had this first round of certainly local approvals, local entitlements. We've seen the first round of state licenses being issued across the board. And now we're getting into that phase of, well, what does it mean to be open and operational? What are the opportunities, but what are the headwinds as well, right? So trust me, I'm not going to speak too much today because we have such a great panel here. So first, let me let my panelists introduce themselves, and then I want to open up with some questions. So, yeah.
Well, everyone, I'm Ed Wilson. I'm the owner of Bakin Dispensary here in Atlantic City. I have the privilege of being from Atlantic City, so I've had the opportunity to see what cannabis looks like from the time it was just an idea to its inception. I was proud to be probably the first local, not probably, the first local person to open. So that's a big accomplishment, being a minority, being a 100% disabled vet. So I've gained a lot of experience. I've gained a lot of great relationships, right? And I'm just happy to be here, so.
Suzanne Nicholson, CEO of Holistic Solutions, also New Jersey Cannabis Equity Association, New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association. I chair the JEDI committee. Just very happy to see so many people in this room really focused and centered on a very impactful conversation. SEEF is very critical to our state and also critical to our businesses. And thank you all for tapping in for a very powerful conversation. Kick it over to Todd.
Hi, everybody. My name is Todd Johnson, for those that I have not met before. I'm the executive director of the New Jersey Cannabis Trade Association, and I also am the founder or co-founder of Community Greenhouse, which is a diversely owned dispensary that will be opening up in Newark, New Jersey.
So let me open it up with a question. Suzanne mentioned the SEEF, right? And I think everyone in this room kind of knows what it is at a high level, the social equity excise fee, right? And I always think it's important to start with that name, right? Because I think it's important to at least contextualize, well, hold on a second. This is a fund designed to help social equity. How could that be a bad thing, right? Or how could we not support that, right? So for folks who maybe have been following, but maybe don't understand the moving parts of it, could either of you guys just give a sense for us of what is the SEEF, what's happening right now, and why is that important for everyone in this room, everyone through the supply chain?
Sounds good. So yeah, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. It's called the social equity excise fee, and I think more so than maybe in any other industry, the cannabis industry understands the importance of giving back to communities that were harmed by the war on drugs, giving back and helping to support those, whether it's through educational programs for adults that have been incarcerated due to possession of cannabis, whether it's educational programs for kids in impact zones who don't have necessarily the resources in their schools to expose them to some of the really important projects and resources that are out there. I think Colorado, back in the day when they first went rec, did a good job of diverting much of the tax revenue that was gained from the sale of cannabis into the public education system. And my understanding is that the public school system benefited tremendously. So when we talk about the social equity excise fee, let's separate that from what is important for the industry to give back and to support programs that are going to help the communities that have been impacted. And then let's define what this social equity excise fee is here in New Jersey. It was written into the CREAM Act when the CREAM Act was passed, and it is a fee that is charged directly to adult use consumers, adult use cultivators that are, and it's a fee that increases inversely to the retail price of cannabis. So when prices of retail cannabis are high, and for example, above $350 an ounce, then the SEEF can be up to $10. But when the average retail price drops below $350, if it's below $250 and $350, then the SEEF can be as high as $30 an ounce, and that gets charged directly to adult use cultivators, as I mentioned.
And let's just pause there for a second. I mean, we got a bunch of retailers in the room right now. Think about that. Prices start going down, and the state's going to say, well, start charging more for your products. What's that going to do to your base of customers? They're going to say, hold on a second, prices are going lower. Now you're asking more money from me? And so again, I think it's important to really just zero in on that, right? Because no matter what you might think about a general tax, if you're penalizing me as I reduce my prices, I'm going to look the worst to my consumers. So I just think it's really important to emphasize that.
And everybody who reads it understands that cultivators have less of an incentive to drop their prices, knowing that if the average price goes down below a specific threshold, then the SEEF can be raised up to what ends up being, if the retail price drops below $200 an ounce, the SEEF can be as high as $60. $60, that's 30% of the retail price of an ounce. But
I've heard the mumbling in the room when that number was mentioned.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Well, so
the best thing to do is ask them how they deal with it, pass it on to us, and see how this is really affecting us.
Well, but just on Martha makes such a great point, right? Which is, think about every other form of taxation in your life, right? If your government, if your local town's going to increase your property taxes, they give you notice of that months in advance. You know how this dropped on this industry, on this marketplace? In October 17th, the CRC had one line item on their agenda that said consideration of the 2020, what year are we in? 2025 SEEF, right? I can't believe it's almost into 2024. They didn't put that it was going to be $30. It's not like they said, hey, look, let's do 6 months of industry feedback. They dropped it on this industry in the dead of night. And you know, still being fought to this day. But Martha makes such a great point, which is how can a business plan for that when you're being attacked with a tax overnight?
Yeah, I think that it's critical that notice was important, but the lack of notice and the impact, the detriment, the harm that it will create. A lot of individuals are looking to potentially be profitable, to somehow be in the black going into 2025. We're looking to rev up our cultivation, bring in new products, hire more people. With any potential onerous tax, that really wipes away all those possibilities. That becomes a what's called wish list, because we don't have the capital to really support that. And even before we begin to raise a tax, let's be transparent about where the money went and what the money was allocated to, and dig into that a little bit deeper. But I'll pause there for that. I understand we have some cultivators in the room. You know, what would it mean for those who have cultivation to have, 200% increase to your bottom line in revenue? Like Highgrass and Sean, you know, Billy, what does that look like for you? Yeah. Jim and Kelly, yeah, absolutely.
The unfortunate thing, you're just going to pass it on to your consumers.
Right.
So it's just another tax.
Jimmy, can I ask you a question about that? How do you pass it on to the consumers? Like if you're doing B2B stuff, like where does it get into retail? Now I understand how it affects you when you control the whole supply chain. That's one thing, it is directly affecting you. But if you were doing business with someone like me and I was buying it, how would you factor that into our deal? Would you? At $1.64?
At the moment, we don't.
Yeah,
We don't factor it in
right?
at the
You
moment.
don't.
But
Okay.
no, with this type of increase, we
Right.
have no choice.
Right, so
to
$5
factor
an
that in.
ounce. I'm just, we're talking this out.
No, we have to sit and reevaluate.
It's
and
$480 a
absolutely.
pound. For a micro like myself, if I were to get that passed along, it would cost me $500,000 in tax.
A month.
A month.
And can I add?
Even say, if I can, Mike, we're just starting. We're going to have product ready in January, just in time for this wonderful increase they're proposing. We're already 11 million in the hole on this whole project, and it would be nice to someday, not be in the red. And they're just taking us out the knees right from the start.
Right from jump. And one other thing, because I know we have some standalone manufacturers here. One other thing to bear in mind that the CRC is doing with this new 2025 proposal is not only are they proposing an increase up to $30 on usable cannabis, they're proposing to tax unusable cannabis for the first time, for which would go to manufacturers among other, right? Well, so yeah. So it's a long definition. I mean, the easiest way to think about it is usable cannabis. They're talking about cannabis in dried form, and the unusable. They're also talking about the other constituents of the plant, right? The fan leaves and things like that, right? But it could also be not dried cannabis, right? So think about if you're using fresh frozen, among other things. So, and again, I do just want to bear this out, right? Because the prior 2 years, you saw the tax on usable cannabis and only usable cannabis at, what was it, $1.21 last year?
2024 is $1.24.
$1.24, and the year before that slightly higher, $1.52. But just on usable. So not only are they proposing to increase that up to $30 on usable, but I believe it's $4 on unusable. So they're getting you every which way. This clearly isn't just a cultivator issue. This clearly isn't just a manufacturer issue. This isn't just a retailer issue. And this is a consumer issue as well. And it's still ongoing. Go ahead.
Were you going to say something? I'd like to go back to what Kelly and Jim mentioned, which is right now they're not really recognizing it when they're charging their customers, because at $1.24 it's something that is it's available to be absorbed by the cultivator. But when you talk about a fee increasing by even 300%, which would take the $1.24 to $5, then it becomes something that, hey, this is now going to really impact our bottom line, and we have spent a tremendous amount of money. John just mentioned $11 million for Highgrass Farms. Roots Roots, you all have been in business for a little while longer, so I'm sure that you have invested a tremendous amount of money. It becomes untenable to now just pass along to your clients or to your customers. So then that's a 300% increase to $5, which they make it sound like it's not a big deal. But the 2,500% increase that they were originally proposing to go to $30, that is what brings down an entire industry and makes it not even profitable for anybody to operate.
It makes it profitable for the world I came from to be over there.
I was going to say, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, absolutely. It 100% makes it so that people are incentivized to purchase from unregulated sources, that where testing is not done or it's not a priority, and the manufacturing, while Martha, I'm sure you were making bomb butter cake prior to having to be tested and regulated, there are other actors out there that we cannot say the same thing for. And that is the premise of the CRC, was to bring legacy into legal, and let's have the unregulated market come into the regulated market and be done with all of the unsafe products that are on shelves or being delivered, or however people are getting those products. And this is something, this fee, this tax, is going to make it much, much harder for legal operators to continue their businesses.
Well, and just on that point too, right? Like, and this goes to the concept of New Jersey trying to do it the right way, right? And we've heard of numbers and statistics out of the CRC that says, at least from a data-driven perspective, they've somewhat done it the right way, in the sense that I think they've said about 70% of all licensed entities in New Jersey are diversely owned, right? So disabled, veteran-owned, minority-owned, woman-owned. I think they've said another 16%, maybe it's 13%, but somewhere in that ballpark, are social equity license holders. And they're gonna praise themselves, and rightfully so, and say, well, 86% of our license holders are either diversely owned or social equity. And then we're going to charge the 2,500% tax increase on them.
Exactly.
And the one thing I just don't want to forget, because we have so many businesses in the room, and as Suzanne said earlier, everyone recognizes how disastrous this increase, whether it's $5 or $30 would be. But let's also look at where it's going. And Suzanne, you started to touch on that, but give folks, what is the CRC? I don't want to blame the CRC here, by the way. What has the legislature and the executive branch done with SEEF funds to this point? And what's their plan moving forward for 2,500% increase, 500% increase? Because, maybe people could get behind that. I don't know.
I mean, that's a great question. I think transparency is what we're looking for. From our understanding, the current cannabis tax monies have been used in crime prevention programs, diversion programs, all the things that we want to see happen. Safe communities, individuals that are participating in criminal acts, having a level of recidivism, not going back to that, and providing a new way path forward. As I stated, both of my nephews were incarcerated while I went to operate. So I understand individuals wanting and deserving a second chance. But my concern is that the SEEF tax is unidentified, meaning that every year our great executor, the governor, puts together a budget. And in his budgets passed, he has accounted for crime prevention. That money has already been allocated. So we have a very unique opportunity in the great state of New Jersey to do something different. This is the first time that we have cannabis money to be used. And that cannabis money was to be used and recommended to help entrepreneurs that look like us. States that, such as New York, they created funds. We had the EDA. It was a small pilot program that went to targeted constituents. Why not reinvest those dollars as the report stated? Put it into our businesses. Make New Jersey cannabis affordable, but also too, it's great to give out licenses, but if you can't get any capital to open and operate, those are again, pipe dreams. So we have money that's already been allocated. Why are we reallocating money that the governor has already set aside for? Why are we not looking to be creative? Why are we not having conversations prior to making these announcements? There was no discussion with the cannabis industry or community. There were no focus groups. We all participated in public meetings that were throughout the state. We weighed in, we provided public comment, we testified in person. We had our lobbyists, our attorneys. How is that all disregarded? And there's no conversation. We need accountability and we need transparency, but before we raise anything, let's talk about what it's been put for. We're not giving bad money. Well, I think that we say, great question, provide the reports. Let's see the current allocation of where those monies went, and let's look at the measured outcomes.
If any, because we don't know that any has been spent yet.
Exactly.
Nothing's been spent yet.
Well, the current cannabis tax money has been spent.
The sales tax.
The sales tax. And I think that we need to look at the efforts and measurements and benchmarks of that money before we start putting out more money into the community and having things not be in the way that we want to manifest them.
I'm always good at butchering quotes. What is it? An idea without a plan is a plan to fail. And I think that's what you're getting at, Suzanne. And to go to the comment from earlier, this isn't us guessing. The CRC is required to put out an annual report advising the legislature as to what they should do with SEEF funds. They included a footnote in that most recent report, which I think was from May, that basically said, hey, look, as we understand it, you haven't spent any of these funds on anything, right? So it's one thing to say more. It's another thing to say, why more if you don't have a plan for the first bucket? And why more on the backs of this industry, on solely the backs of this industry?
And let's say something that people don't want to talk about. This money should not be going back into the general fund. We are watching where this money is going. This money should not touch the general fund. So we should be clear as the industry and constituents of accountability. We have plenty of money toward the general fund. This is the first time we've had cannabis dollars. Let's do the right thing. Martha?
In the spirit of suggesting solutions and whatnot, in this wild journey I've been on, I feel like the number one thing that's holding everybody back, if they don't have it already, is real estate. So is there a way that this excise tax fee could be allotted towards incentivizing or educating landlords to getting them to understand that, like, some of us are just out here trying to make a brownie, you know? Could that be some sort of solution we could present instead of whatever they're not doing with the money?
So the state of New Jersey has real estate. Municipalities have real estate that they sell back. Wow. So the state has, since COVID, empty real estate since people have transitioned back to telework. So we have real estate right within our coffers that I think that we could look creatively at and potentially reallocate, sell, lease, provide grants, really creative things. So yes, I believe the state can also be a great collaborator in looking at its own real estate to see how they can be helpful in this industry.
Ultimately, the more people that get to operation, the more money the state makes anyway. So it's like easy math to me.
And you also make a great point too, which is we got to think about how do we incentivize things without just increasing spending, right? So you think about like economic benefits that real estate developers get if they build in certain areas, in the residential side, if they include a certain portion of their project to affordable housing and stuff like that, right? The answer isn't always spend. Some of it's how do we incentivize the marketplace to do things like incubation? Maybe you get some kind of additional benefit in the land use process. But point being, right, like we're having such great conversations here about ideas that go beyond just let's tax the high hell out of that industry, right?
And that's how we're treated. The cannabis industry is treated by many, many states as a piggy bank. and the outside stereotype is that, you know, we're growing money in these cultivations, and dispensaries are making money hand over fist, and they totally ignore the tax treatment that each of our companies has to deal with at the federal level. Thankfully, you know, we worked very hard to get 280E from the IRS tax code decoupled from the state tax code, which was helpful. But the IRS, you know, at the federal level is soaking up a ton of profits in this industry. And this is not a state's piggy bank. This is an industry with hardworking folks that are trying to get as profitable as they can, but having to run their operations extremely lean. And I mean, I don't want to get off topic too much, but also the fact that home rule in New Jersey made it so that only 30% of the municipalities out there have allowed cannabis companies to operate. It means that Ed here in Atlantic City has a ton of competition because Atlantic City is one of the only only cities in this area that allows dispensaries to operate. And that's a side note of things that we need to work on for sure.
Yeah, and just a couple quick points, and I do want to try and pivot to some positivity, notwithstanding the current conversation. So one thing I'll say is, right, continue to engage with commissioners, legislators. I mean, I think the one thing that I do take solace on is there was a great campaign of folks like Suzanne really encouraging people in the industry, reach out. Voices do matter. And we certainly saw that over the last two meetings. I mean, they could have pushed this through at the October 17th meeting. They could have pushed this through at the emergency meeting they held on October 30th. And you know, give credit where it's due. I mean, if you listen to Commissioner Barker's public comments at that late October board meeting, he said, he goes, look, you know, I'm for more money going to the right resources, but we got to make sure it's the right resources. And I don't want to overburden this industry that's right out of its industry and is diverse, right? I mean, that's a commissioner who made his intentions and his voice so crystal clear on these core issues, right? So your voice does matter. And it was the deluge of letters going towards them saying, look, I own one dispensary. I own one manufacturing license. Let me tell you how much this is going to affect me. So I will just urge folks, the December meeting is going to be that next pivotal meeting. Make sure your voice is heard. There's no letter too short. There's no letter too long. Todd, do you want to give the plug on outreach?
I sure do. Yeah. So we have created these flyers here, which just give a visual of how much this SEEF is going to increase prices for consumers if a $30 SEEF gets passed at the December 12th meeting. Also, in the lower left-hand corner, we have a QR code, which will take you to a virtual citizen campaign. It's a website where you can easily reach out to the governor's office as well as the CRC and send them a note and make your opposition heard so that they understand this is not a good thing for the industry. And so these are available. We're also going to put them on our website, but please, we still need, up until that December 12th meeting, we need our voices to be heard. So make sure that you are sending this out to your friends. We're going to be putting it in dispensaries at POS so that consumers can see that in 2025 there is a real potential for increased prices. And this is a way that, just like in any election, when folks are making phone calls and knocking on doors, it has an impact. And reaching out to the governor's office will make a difference and let them know that we're serious about keeping the SEEF as low as possible. And feel free to throw in something in there about transparency as well, because we don't want the SEEF. We want a positive delta going into communities that have been impacted. We don't, as Suzanne mentioned, we don't want money going to the general fund where the SEEF money goes into community-based violence intervention programs, and then the money that was allocated to community-based violence intervention programs goes into the general fund. That's not what this SEEF was supposed to do. This SEEF was supposed to fund programs on top of the existing programs that is going to make our state have better living conditions and less of a negative impact for those in communities that were over-policed and subject to higher incarceration rates due to possession of cannabis.
And again, just to that point of, like, you know, increasing the SEEF is obviously not the only way that this industry benefits the state. And Baking Bad is a perfect example of that. Again, you're from Atlantic City, you're hiring in this community, you're creating jobs. If you would, give us a little bit of a sense of your journey to opening a beautiful dispensary right next door, and give us a little bit of like what that's been like, those headwinds, and also the opportunities.
It's been a colorful journey, right? So you read all of the rules, and if you're a micro, you know what it takes to become a micro business. And then you look at the law and how it's written, and you say, wait a minute, it's kind of a setup, right? They tell you that you have to make a certain amount of money, but you can't make this amount of money to qualify, right? And then I look around at people who look like me, and I say, well, I happen to be a business owner already, so I file my taxes, and I file my taxes under my LLC, so I qualify at a certain level. But then because I'm a business owner, I can show that I have a certain amount of money, right? And most people don't fall into that category. So when I hear about things like the SEEF, to me it doesn't make sense, or it's premature right now, because if anybody's who's been to swaps, the city dons us the headquarters of the city, right? So I'm always customer first. So it kind of disheartens me that we're so in a rush to tax the businesses that you say that you're here to help, and nobody has paid attention of how hard that journey is to begin with. And then I have to look at people who shop with me on a daily basis and say, your price is going to get higher, when it's already a challenge, because I'm in an inner city area where people don't need to come to me. Right? So all of those things have been on my mind the entire journey. If you've got to this point, unless you're just unbelievably blessed, you've learned that it's not about what you know, it's who you know sometimes, and relationships matter, right? So I can't sell you a sob story and say that my journey was so rough, because it wasn't. There was a lot of lessons learned. And fortunately for me, some of the relationships that I've built have helped me to get to where we're at, in a place to where I can say financially positive. No, we're not. I didn't make 20 million yet, and hopefully one day we'll get there, right? But the process has been it's been a journey. It's been long. It's taken a lot of discipline. It's taken a lot more speaking than I like to do, right? I'm always speaking at work. And then you also have to balance everything that you're doing here with regular work life, right? So I think they need to take into account cannabis doesn't mean that you hit the lottery, right? I wake up at 6 o'clock every morning and I go work as a project manager at Atlantic Electric. I still coach high school football. I'm a full-time father. Right? So just because you do these things doesn't mean that you punched your ticket. And I would encourage, I'm normally the one doing a lot of speaking, so it's a relief to have Todd and Sue this evening, right? But you guys said something, and it really made me look at myself and the things that we do. And I hope that any other cannabis businesses that may see this message learn that in the mix of your everyday business dealings, right? I've heard about the SEEF. We talk about it. We have a call every Monday. We talk about everything. But when you have real life going on, I'm realizing that it's more important to force yourself to take a deeper delve and be more involved than you may have the capacity for, because these conversations are super important. And although I know that it's important, I could say for me anyway, you get so busy with real life that until it's like a panel like this, you don't understand how important it is to put your voices together, right? So that's a learning point for me. So I appreciate you guys and the panel that we have today.
I appreciate that sentiment a lot, Ed. Thank you for sharing. And you are absolutely correct. This industry is so young, even with 175 dispensaries and 19 standalone manufacturers and probably, I don't know, close to 30, maybe a few more cultivators. It is still a very small industry, and we need to stick together because there are other interests out there, whether it be the SEEF or the hemp-derived cannabinoid space, liquor stores selling beverages that should be on our shelves that aren't even on our shelves or available in the market. We really need to come together and collaborate and make our voices heard. That is going to be, a big part of us being able to be successful in this industry is to really get folks out to weigh in on these important topics and I just want to touch on the hemp bill for a second, because that is a critical piece of legislation that was signed by the governor on September 12th, and it was supposed to be enacted on October 12th, but the hemp industry sued the AG and pretty much got a bit of a reprieve until the legislature comes back and fixes some of the language. But we need to have all cannabis products, whether they be cannabis, weed, marijuana, or hemp-derived, being sold through Class 5 retailers in New Jersey.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. While I do agree with that statement, I feel like for where the market's at and how many manufacturers already exist in this space, it's not going to work. Because where are all of these companies that now want to flood us to do a specific and particular type of manufacturing supposed to have this manufacturing done to satisfy that market? So I think that they need to stand up manufacturers, get them up and running, and then allow hemp.
Well, okay. I guess my point is that these products are being sold right now for cheaper prices. They're unregulated, so they're untested and unsafe. But they are cannabis products. It's all from the same plant, cannabis sativa L. Whether it's a hemp plant or any other, it's all the same to me, in my opinion. And so we need to make sure that the products are being sold through the same supply chain rather than being diverted.
Made by Class 2 to be sold by Class 5.
So you're saying that the current infrastructure of manufacturing can't even support the potential breadth of new ideas, new products coming on, because even if they can't get out-of-state relationships, you don't even have the bandwidth, or many manufacturers don't have the current bandwidth to support those requests. So in that, you're saying get manufacturing up, continue to slow roll the rollout of hemp, and to make sure that the market is prepared for that onslaught. That sounds reasonable. I like that.
But why can't they just go through the same process we all did?
Why are you
that's
paying
what
the
I'm
tax?
saying.
Why
That's
are
what
you
I'm saying.
paying
The current hemp manufacturers need to come get a Class 2, so it can be sold for Class 5. However, as somebody who holds a Class 2 and is also a brand, these brands don't have time to wait for none of that. So they're going to come to the people that already have Class 2 licenses, and we don't, as an industry, we don't have
It's
to hold
unfortunate
that.
for them.
Exactly.
Right, so that's, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're all saying the same thing. We need to have the support of the current industry.
100%. I have a friend of mine who is, he sells those hemp-derived products on a large scale. I won't say his name, but when these brands come, he's one of the biggest booths that you can have in there, right? And I do think that's an important conversation, especially for New Jersey, because he used to own dispensaries and grows in LA, and he left cannabis for that unregulated market because he's making that much more money. And I had questions, and I never like to speak out of turn, and I said, such and such, why would you leave cannabis? He said, well, I didn't leave cannabis. It's the same plant, except for I harvested 2 weeks earlier, right? So they do the same things as my friends back here, but they're going to the 3/4 of a mile as opposed to full. It's a gray area, right? So while I understand what you're saying, I'd rather the people who went through the process like we did have to go through that process than for these guys to miss out on dollars, for myself to miss out on dollars because somebody took a shortcut. That's crazy to me.
Part of the discrepancy in the hemp space and this whole crossover to cannabis is kind of like what he just said is, so it's the same plant that they're calling hemp, but it's because they're harvesting really cold a few weeks early to avoid the the conversion from THCA to D9. So it's not that they need to force all hemp products, CBD and D8 and HHC and all of these things into dispensaries. It's really just, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's really just they're letting people sell weed and calling it hemp. Yeah.
We agree. We agree with that.
That's what's happening.
It's
28%.
And Congress.
A gas station, bought it, and sent it to our lab.
Yeah, go
And
to the
it says-
store and there's a lot of
Just-
flour.
But I gotta pay a host fee,
That's going
they
to
come
THCA.
down
That's
and
just
the
what
cops
it is.
won't do nothing.
So it's just a gray
And it's being
area.
grown in California.
Was so and like
They're exposing a loophole based on the 0.3, maximum allowable D9, and because that D9 is 0.2, that THCA now falls under the hemp bill, and that's really the problem. Absolutely. It's being able to go buy cookies in the store at my local smoke shop. It's not cookies, but it doesn't matter because the bag says it, and I'm just going to buy it because I don't know any better, and I'm just just an uneducated consumer looking to buy cheap weed to get my fix. It's become the new, buying a dime, out of an apple bag that your buddy down the block has. Like, it's just very accessible. So if they can figure that part out and just regulate these psychoactive components to the plant, that's, I think, different than forcing all hemp products, because hemp is that's just federally legal. And there are plenty of very legitimate labs in this country that make really good product and do have very, serious SOPs and QCs that they follow and testing and everything else to the levels that we do. In some cases, even more strict with the parts per million that they're looking for, parts per billion. So these are things that, again, for open discussion, I think are great, but it's important, I think, for everyone to understand the difference. They're exposing something in the law by figuring out how to harvest the right way so you can now sell weed at stupid numbers nationally.
And not on the same tax structure that
It's
we're all.
called shucking and jiving, conning the system. But when you say shucking and jiving last week, I was dead. But that is true.
It is.
Don't forget that also underscores that in addition to following this local stuff, we need to be paying attention federally because they just put out the language for the 2025 Farm Bill, which seeks to stop all that. Like it came out, I think, 2024, whatever. Not this year. Sorry. 5, 4. And that language just came out, and it looks to be stopping this stuff in theory. But
Well, the Miller Amendment is there, and it will tweak it. But there is a current transition into a new government that currently that's still in the gray area. But based on maybe Mr. Kennedy, if he is nominated, he's very psychedelic, very pro-cannabis. He may be able to push that through, but our fear is that there needs to be consensus on both sides, and potentially there may be some headwinds in 2025, but we would have to get everybody in D.C. to agree, and they haven't agreed, but maybe there's going to be agreement now.
So a couple quick thoughts, and then what I would love to do to kind of just round out this session is I'd love to go around to each of the operators and in a sentence what SEEF means to each of you. Before I get there, I just want to summarize a couple great points that went around the room. You made the point the drastic increase to the SEEF is premature. And that's all I think anyone in this room is saying. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out the right number. Let's figure out where it goes to, but let's not rush it. I mean, I think of that classic line from manufacturers, right? When, on edibles advice, right? Go slow, go low. That's all we're saying to the CRC. Keep it low. Let's figure this out. Let's not kill the industry right as it's getting off the ground. You made a great point on like we're only as good as our communities and our neighborhood. And I do want to thank everyone so much for coming here tonight, because this is a tremendous community. Even the feedback we've gotten here has been so great. And on the hemp point, and you mentioned your friend in California, stop making being in the cannabis industry harder. Let's find ways to make it easier. Go ahead in the back.
Like, just before you get into the whole SEEF thing, I think just to follow up on something Ed said before, I think it's important that we all get involved, and like I thank the Cannabis Trade Association for doing this.
And NJCEA as well.
All your leadership, but we all need to be involved. We can't sit back on this. We need to join, whether it's Cannabis Trade Association, CA, CBA, be involved in this and be part of it, and love you all there. So I think it's important that we show up for the fight here. So
additionally, in the spirit of collaboration, as I was listening in on the hearing that took place, there were a lot of organizations that advocate for Black and brown individuals of social equity that were in support of the increase. How do we pull them in so that they see and hear Ed's story, my story?
Yeah, that's
So I think that's a great point. The African American Chamber of Commerce, the NAACP, the ACLU need to pull up and have conversations with minority entrepreneurs that are operating in this great state. I was the first Black woman to ever hold a license here. I have not spoken to anyone about my journey or my experience or my struggles.
Notably selling a $10 product.
Okay? Exactly. So the first Black female manufacturer, no one has come to you to have that conversation. And again, it's about community. We are not divisive. We are collaborative. We want to see our community that has been disproportionately harmed improved, but not at our businesses being harmed. So my mother would always say, don't speak for me unless you know me. So let's get to know each other. Let's start to have those conversations, because I believe that there's a lot of commonality that would lead to great collaboration, that leads to great success. But let's stop talking at each other and let's start talking to each other.
Great points. We're getting close I think we're beyond time. What I, again, word, phrase, and I understand I'm putting everyone on the spot. Duplicative answers are absolutely fine. What does the SEEF mean to each of the operators in this room? And I'll take volunteers first.
We're vertically integrated, so we grow, manufacture, we have a retail. Part of our cultivation, we have outdoor and indoor. So that outdoor has enabled us to offer affordable cannabis. And I feel like we have put a little dent in the market in a positive way, to help bring down the pricing. And I feel the SEEF tax, at a significant increase like this, would essentially be 5 steps forward and 10 steps back. So I really feel it would be a negative impact.
And especially as a 2019er who was waiting, languishing for years. Highgrass Farms.
I'm going to give 2 words: necessary and onerous, because it is something that we all need to support. We want to support social equity, but what they're proposing is hardly onerous and going to hurt our industry. So it needs to be reasonable. It needs to be something we can all live with. And again, I think all of you said they haven't asked for our input. Like, really get our input, get the industry's input, because they're going to hurt, if not kill, our legal industry. So
I have 2 probably highly emotional words, and as someone who's not quite online yet, and it is a bit duplicitous, is hope and despair. I'm hopeful that, number one, talking about transparency, that it's going to go to the right places, that we can really guide where that goes and have like more of a say in that, more power in general. But despair, because it's just like, all right, is this even worth it for me to even be pursuing?
Don't give up, keep going.
Oh, listen, no, I got that dog in me. But let's be real. But still, there's still that little, like, that bit of fear that's connected to it as well. So yeah.
And I agree, as somebody who has the same story. I am from Atlantic City. I live in Atlantic City. I work in Atlantic City, and I'm opening here on the app myself. I just feel the pressures of getting, and also working every day in my own job and getting new information. I'm wondering how that can impact my ability to open and hear information after I've already started this process, and how it might hold me up or change the direction. And you also gives you those thoughts of, you know, how much more change can I endure as I go through this process. Sorry.
Sarah Trent, Valley Wellness. I'm here with Tim as well. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about how it affects us as business owners. And I've been kind of raising my hand in the back. I really want to bring it home. The commissioners know this, but a lot of regular people out there don't know that it affects them. It is going to affect you at the point of sale at retail. And that is why we have created this wonderful graphic that I actually just want to read aloud because we're being recorded here and this is going to be shared. And so if you can't see the graphic, you know, okay, so for an ounce of cannabis, you pay $330 at the point of sale. With a $30, with the SEEF that is proposed, that comes to $360 an ounce. You are going to be taxed on that $360. So what I think is really important, we keep calling it the SEEF. The SEEF is a hidden tax. It is not a tax, but it is a tax because, and we're gonna be taxed on top of the tax, right? So the SEEF is $30, so $360 an ounce, which you're gonna be taxed on. So 6.625 plus the 2% local tax, you're gonna be paying $423 on that $330 ounce. So you're almost $100 more. It is really, really important for like the average person that buys a joint at the dispensary once a week to understand how the SEEF is going to affect them. And that is why we at the dispensaries are gonna have this, right? It's important, of course, for the business owners, but really we need to be educating the everyday person who's coming out to shop and wants to see cannabis prices lower. I attended a meeting with 2 of the commissioners about 2 months ago, a roundtable discussion, very informal, where we got to talk about licensing. Well, the topic of conversation really turned to pricing and why are prices in New Jersey so high? This is part, so I just urge the everyday consumer to really educate themselves. We as business owners are educated. We need to educate everybody else.
And Sarah, I mean, on the pricing point, right? I mean, and this is where, you know, you guys know this, businesses never get their due, right? But what the story coming out of the CRC over the last several months has been pricing consistently coming down. And that's a couple different.
Business owners are the ones doing that. We, as a medical ATC that is expanded into adult use, I can tell you, and I know Kelly, many ATCs are doing the same thing. We have adult use only product that we cannot sell on the medical side. We as business owners are taking a hit, 10%, to cover the tax that medical patient shouldn't be paying because that product should be available on the adult use side. So us in this room, the business owners, are doing their part to make the industry more fair. I hope that consumers understand that. And I hope that the CRC will take action to see what kind of things we are doing behind the scenes. If there's not a legislative fix to this issue that I'm talking about with adult use only product, we need to keep prices down for patients and customers, not be looking at how to increase them, especially when prior SEEF funds have not been allocated for them.
So normally, as a Bakin
Well
Bad
said, Sarah.
have been, and I apologize, we have been disruptors, right? We've been kind of quiet lately. I would encourage everyone, when we all open, I'm sure that our city councils and mayors have given us all pats on the back, right? But with things like this, what I've learned is until you get those people who are sworn in to protect you and speak on your behalf involved, sometimes the powers that be don't listen, right? So let's not just rack our brains over how we're going to figure it out, but enlist the help and make those who are the voice for us more involved as well, even if they don't want to be, because they have votes up there. What are they voting for if we can't go back to them and then say, hey, I need your help, right?
That is such a tremendous point. I mean, let's remember why the state is down here in Atlantic City this week. This is the League of Municipalities. This is the League of Municipalities. This is the league. There's literally an organization in New Jersey that exists because of the power of municipalities. And never forget that for everyone who's in a town that charges a local tax at 2% fee, your town is your 2% partner. Get them to work for you too.
Put a quick one on that. No representation from cannabis at the League of Municipalities. Why is that?
Well, so there is the commissioners are speaking, but the business owners were not invited. Many business owners reached out to the League of Municipality and Associations, and we did and asked to speak because of these main issues, but unfortunately that was not permissible. But they did invite the commissioners. I do see that Chair Ueno will be a part of a very important conversation. But I do think that we need to continue to demand a seat at that table and conversations, not to be talked about, but to be talked to, and so we can work collaboratively as well with them.
Here's the best part. Here's the best part. We weren't invited. We're still here. So.
No, that is true. We were not invited, but we did create our own table of our own discussion because we felt the importance of how important this discussion is.
And I just, not to cut anyone off, we are out of time. So I want to thank NJCEA. I want to thank NJCTA. I want to thank Bakin Bad for giving us this great spot, for helping bring us to the table here. And I want to thank everyone here for coming, making your voices heard. Continue to do that. Please take a flyer. Please tell your friends. Please reach out. This conversation today was perfect, invaluable, and let's make sure that the CRC, the legislature, and the governor's office hears that as well.
Absolutely. So we will be sending out a follow-up virtual link between now and the end of the year to have a virtual conversation to keep this conversation going because, again, we need to, like people say, stare in their face before they play in our face. So we need to be vigilant to make sure that we are watching what's happening, and we also want to be collaborative because we want to be a participant and partners in this. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you all.